Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to have a days of nights run through of examples of rules, but without taking consideration any break tests. This run through was written to me by the author Curtis, who was very kind to create a very nice situation, and so he can show me how different aspects of the rules work. So without any delay, let's go very quick and see the order of battle for the English, who are considered the red. They have a marshal, they will have 2 captains, 2 mounted knights, 3 longbows and 3 man-at-arms. 2 man-at-arms 2 or man-at-arms are basically heavy infantry. Let's go now to the French, who are the blue. They have an allied lord who commands 1 mounted knight, who is a retinue unit, and 2 heavy cavalry, and a marshal who has 3 mounted knight man-at-arms 1. Man-at-arms 1 are basically the strongest unit, except the foot knights are men-at-arms in combination with foot knights, so they become more robust, and 2 units of crossbows. Let's go quickly and see the deployment before we go to the battlefield with my minis. You see on the north the English as red. On the English right flank we have a unit of mounted knights. Attached is a captain, and then we have staggered 3 longbowmen and 3 men-at-arms, heavy infantry, and the men-at-arms will have attached a marshal, and in the back there is a unit of mounted knights attached with a captain. In the French, the blue, on the right flank, on the left flank of the French, they have 2 heavy cavalries and a mounted knight, and these units are commanded by allied lord, and the main army has 3 men-at-arms 1 and 2 crossbows commanded by a marshal. Here on the right is the battle sequence. You start with rallying your troops, resolve bow fire, deploy stakes, for example, movement, make panic rolls, melee, follow-up movements, and break tests. These all sub-phases are done by every army separately in its initiative phase. Okay guys, now that we saw the deployment and the army list, let's go to the battlefield and let's start this run through. Now it's the end of red's turn. When we talk about red, it's the English here in the north, and the blue are the French here at the south, as you saw in the diagram before. So it's the end of the red's turn. You can see the sequence here on the right, and the red longbows managed to demoralize 2 units of the blue, of the French, the crossbowmen and the man-at-arms 1. Man-at-arms 1 are man-at-arms with foot knights, quite a strong unit. Now one of the English knights here, with their captain attached, is trying to move to protect the main division, the main army's flanks. But is this from the charge of the French mounted knights and heavy cavalry? But will this be enough, or is it maybe too late? Now the French rally, you can see the sequence here on the right, and manage to remove 1 demoralization marker from the crossbowman, but they don't succeed to remove the demoralization marker from the man-at-arms. Now the crossbow, the French division main army moves into crossbow range. But they cannot shoot because crossbowmen can shoot or move. They cannot do both. A longbowman, on the other hand, can shoot and then move. Now, since all in the French cavalry and the blue cavalry are in command at the beginning of the movement phase, each unit can move separately. So 1 heavy cavalry will move to block the red knights units, basically the English. And since the French heavy cavalry starts within the movement arc of the English knights, the English knights have the ability to countercharge. This is a good advantage for the English because they're countercharging, they can use their charge bonus. The movement arc of a unit, I had a template, I don't have it now, is basically the diagonals coming from both edges here and here, and they create a movement arc, and this is the movement arc and the shooting arc, everything. So if you charge within this arc, obviously, and far enough, obviously this unit can countercharge, mounted only. So the heavy cavalry charges of the French and the English countercharge, and they can keep their bonus. Now this is obviously a big advantage because the combat factor of the knights is 5, and they get +3 for the charge bonus, otherwise they would have lost this, and also they get a +1 for the captain who is attached, so they start with a 9, plus of course the d10 that you're going to roll, against the heavy cavalry that has a combat factor of 4 and the charge bonus of 2 or 6. So you see how the balance changes because the English were able to counter-charge. The French hope that the heavy cavalry can hold enough the English mounted knights, at least for a couple of turns, so they will be able to materialize their flank attack and actually start destroying English units. So the rest of the command charges the English in the flanks, like this. And here also we can do the famous call in Miniature Games, cheesy whip. When you're outflanking your opponent and it's your turn, you're charging, you can basically encircle. If you're attacking from the front and you have extended flanks of 2 units, then you can encircle fully the unit. This is only when you're charging. The heavy cavalry moves and encircles the units of English longbowmen. Now, this is important because knights don't support each other. So you have to think about this thing. So if you stayed here, this unit wouldn't have done anything. If it was an infantry unit, you could get a +1 for support. But knights don't support each other. In this way, you get extra bonuses in your die roll. Now the English, because obviously they're not fighting in the front, can turn. They have a free turn. Obviously, when you're not fighting the front and you see somebody attacking with the flank, you can turn and fight back. And here we have a hand-to-hand combat, a melee. So now the longbows turn to face the French knights. Now the longbows have a combat factor of 1, but they have a when charged bonus of another 1, so they get a +2. This is basically the last shot before your opponent reach you. But because the English longbow were not attacked within their arc of fire, this bonus is not applicable. They cannot use it. Now, if they lose and get pushed back, they will be destroyed. So they're in a difficult situation, the English longbowmen. So to understand how good move this was for the French, the knights have a combat factor of 5 and a charge bonus of 3, so they go to 8, and against the combat factor of English of only 1. The flank attack will add a +1 to the French dice, so they will go combat factor of 9 against one of the English. But now the English have to roll for a panic test. Units of mounted knights and foot knights cause panic tests to some units, and one of them are the longbowmen. So you have to roll a dice and see what is the result, how you're going to react. Could you be demoralized, you be double demoralized, you break immediately before the melee even starts. So the longbow fail the panic test and they get demoralized. That would mean a -1 to the combat factor. So the combat factor of the longbows is 0, but the mounted knights is 9. So you see the devastation here. So we have melee next. Predictably, the longbow is destroyed. Let's remove it. The knights must advance into the gap and crash into these men-at-arms. These are men-at-arms too. Basically, they are heavy infantry. And now this unit of men-at-arms, obviously not having an opponent in front of it, has to turn and face the flank charge. Now the French knights can fight only 1 melee per phase, so the melee will wait in the next round where it's the English turn. Luckily for the French, the heavy infantry is only demoralized and it keeps holding the English knights who, if they won, would have been extremely dangerous to the French flank attack. So the English knights are still tied. Now the English other knights here, because they have a commander, they can turn and rotate to go towards the flank. So basically they turn like this. They can do it when you have a commander. Again here, the English knights cannot break the heavy cavalry. They cause a double demoralization. That means that the French have to be pushed back 1 pace. But the mounted knights have to follow up. They don't have an option. Mounted knights and foot knights always follow up. They don't have an option to do anything else. Now the two longbow units fire at the same target. You can do this as long as it's within the lack of fire. This is what I like in these rules. And demoralize the men at arms. Now these men at arms were demoralized before. Now they're double demoralized and they will be pushed back one base from the shooting. The English men at arms fight well here. They roll well, and the result is a push. They push back the French knights. Obviously they don't want to follow up, because if they follow they will be flanked. So it's good when units have this option to follow or not follow, but not knights or inspired troops or impetuous troops. So next turn, turn 2, phase 1, it's a disaster for the English. The blue crossbowman shooting against the longbow managed to break it, and the longbow is removed. At the same time, the French knights attacking with all the bonuses. Maybe this was a mistake, maybe you should have followed up, because now they got the bonus. Managed to break and destroy the English men-at-arms and immediately capture their commander, their marshal. Now the French knights, the blue knights, having destroyed the English men-at-arms, they must pass an over-pursuit test and to see what happens. And this means that if they fail the over-pursuit test, they will have a full move and probably will crash against this unit of men-at-arms, but the melee will happen in the next round, because already the knights fought. The French knight passes the test, otherwise he would have been demoralized also. Here finally the English knights saw their superiority and destroyed the French heavy cavalry. So now the English are, the Reds, the English are desperate. Losing the marshal puts them in a real bind. So they move their main man-at-arm forwards, causing the blue man-at-arms to change and face them. So they're like this. So the blue men-at-arms, the French, will face them with their extended, so they can do this. At the same time, they charge with the longbows at the flanks, and they demoralize this unit. In the shooting melee, they demoralize this English men-at-arms. So the English demoralized men-at-arms in the previous round with the battle with the heavy cavalry of the French, rallies with the help of the captain, and then it turns around ready to face the attack, the French here in the flank. If they didn't have the captain, they probably wouldn't do any move. They can move only straight. They probably left the battlefield, so the captain controlled the unit. So the French failed to rally the double demoralized men-at-arms, and they managed to rally only the single demoralized men-at-arms here. And in the shooting melee, they demoralized the English men-at-arms. Having started in command, the French men-at-arms turn left like this to face here from this side, and at the same time the crossbowmen move ahead. They want to prepare an infantry line facing the Red Knights in the left. The Red Knight was a bit here further, my mistake. He was somewhere here. So he turns here, yeah. So they want to face this knight coming here. So eventually you will see probably all these units with the help of the marshal will create a line here. The French knights here continue and charge the remaining man-at-arms. This guy is captured, as we said. We remove him. The remaining man-at-arms, who will obviously turn around to face him, and they get demoralized. So the English knight, with the captain, charges the heavy cavalry and demoralizes it. This charge will go like this, as we see, in the flanks, and of course, then bring it closer. The French heavy cavalry will turn, but in the shooting melee, it will be demoralized, while the knights here will start moving closer to the battlefield so they can play and enroll. So this is without using a break test. This is just one part of a battle and how it works. I hope I really enjoyed it myself. I hope you understood it as well. Probably the break test would depend on how you do the rules, by battle or by army, because you can have break tests by battle or break tests by army. However, in this scenario, the blue defeats the rest of the red infantry without any casualties. One red knight defeats the blue heavy cavalry, so here the blue heavy cavalry is defeated, and then retires, as does the other red knight. Blue gets a high value prisoner for ransom and wins the day. So this was written to me, for me, by the author Curtis. I hope I explained it well. I hope you understood the basics of the rules and the strategy behind it. I find these rules extraordinary, to tell you the truth. I really like them, and hopefully soon, this weekend, I promise we'll have a nice battle report with these beautiful 15mm. I wanted to shoot with my iPhone because this camera, although it's good, it needs very, very good light to perform, and the picture is not that good. But reading, checking, talking, and holding my iPhone, I don't have a stand. I may get a stand. It was quite difficult, so I did it with this camera. Hopefully it's not that bad. So hope you understand the battle gear, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Any questions, please put them in the comments below. I will answer, and obviously Curtis will answer. Thank you so much for watching, and talk to you soon. Bye bye.